Hey everyone, it's Dave. Why are you wearing headphones? You don't need to wear headphones. Hey everyone, it's Dave. And today we're going to work on a very real scenario that's completely not made up. I didn't just make it up. You know how your client calls you up and is like, "Hey man, I need a picture, and we're going to go with a widescreen shot, some sort of concept art, and I need like kind of like a ranger elf, maybe creature guy, and he needs to have a bow, and he's tracking something through the forest." And you're all like, You get to start sketching on your picture, and motorcycles. And you got your your character layout, and you're pretty happy with the overall start of the sketch, and then it hits you. I got to do a background. And so you realize you got to do a background for this thing, and you're not entirely comfortable doing backgrounds. You know, you're just started getting comfortable doing characters and other parts. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how to get a background set up, a basic one set up, and that should get you going from there. So we have our character here, and he's kneeled down, and he's looking at the ground. How do we go to a background from this? So the easiest way is to set up the general plane that you're on. And the way that you do this is, and this is generally more like a concept art rule, but you want your horizon line, in most cases, in a shot like this, at head height. In this case here, since he's kneeled down, if he stood up, roughly around there is going to be our head height. He's not an incredibly tall man, but that's okay. He doesn't need to be. No hate. So we've set up our horizon line, and think of the horizon line as the camera at head height. So if you were the cameraman, this is as tall as you are. So everything you see above the line is taller than you, and everything you see below the line is shorter than you, or at least above or below your line of sight. So the horizon line is really important to establish early on because it's telling you exactly how tall the camera is. Now you can get to multi-point perspectives and everything like that, but we're not really going to get into that at this moment here. We're just going to get a rough background set in so that way you can start building your own. The other thing that's really super important before you go any further is having a lot of reference. So I've pulled in here a bunch of forest photos that I found, and I'm using a software called Pure Ref. It's free, at least for now, and it does a great job at laying out my photos for me. I've got all these different references of forests. I particularly went with forests from Ireland, and so I can draw upon these here because I want to look at little things like how does grass and moss meet trails and road, and what do little details like leaves and things like that look like, and how do the roots sit on the ground, and how far spaced apart are stones in the dirt. These are all details that are really, really helpful that your mind is never going to remember. Because you have to remember that even though, like, if you thought about a stick or a rock right now, you could think of something, right? But you don't really think of like all the little details of it because the human mind doesn't work that way. Your brain is just supposed to be able to say as you're walking along, oh yeah, that's a stick. Oh yeah, that's a rock. But it doesn't gather the details specifically like the way it does faces. You can remember somebody's face pretty specifically, but you probably have a harder time remembering all the little rocks you've seen. Using this reference will help us get kind of a better picture of what our ground looks like and the little details, the little bends in trees, the little cuts in them and things like that that help us establish our world a lot better. So always use reference. So I'm going to keep that off to the side. And I'm just going to start, and I like to start in a grayscale to establish my my value structure early on, but you can just as easily go straight into color. I just find it more comfortable to work in the colors later on, and then I'm worrying about one less thing early on, and I'm just getting straight to the overall composition and the contrasts and everything like that first, and I feel happier that way. But make no mistake, you can go any which way you'd like. So we have our character here. And again, he's below the horizon line because he's kneeled down. So we're going to be looking down at him just a little tiny bit, not very much. If there was another human in the scene, their head might be up here and they'd be standing. And, you know, they might be like, hi, take a look at me. And there'd be their pelvis. And, you know, they'd be, but no matter what, how tall they were, close or far away, they would be. Of course, that head is huge, but the head height would be, if they were all roughly human, you're going to have some variations because different people's heights and whatnot. But that's a great way of keeping your relative sizing of things pretty well established. So one of the things I like to do is just kind of block in some general texture and shape. I like to establish kind of the lighted qualities of my image first. And since a lot of times you're going to work with either what's in the background or in the foreground is going to be the darkest quality of your value structure. So you either establish that darker is closer or lighter is closer. Either way, but you place that darkness where you want it. And I think in this case here, we want to keep the darker closer. It's on like a daylight or something like that. That's generally how you're going to see it. I'm going to set my brush to multiply. And I'm just using like a, it's just like a textured chalk brush. Nothing too special. And one thing to notice also is I don't work on a white background. It's on a light gray background. This way, if I do happen to want to put in white, I have some room to work with. So that's just something to think about. And he's looking down and note also that the character is on a separate layer, and this might come in relevant here in just a few minutes. He's looking down, looks like he might be tracking something. So let's actually kind of move him off. Let's give it a little bit of a story, right? Move him off to the side. See how relevant that became? Let's say he was going through the grass in the forest and he was tracking something and it came to like a little bit of a clearing or a road, let's say like a path. And this path is going to go from here to off to there. Now, if I just leave it in the full width like this, it's going to look really flat and it's going to look like it's going up, not out. And that's way wrong. I also don't want to leave it like a straight path if I don't absolutely have to, because it's just boring. So we're going to give a little bit of a wind in the road. And right now I'm just laying out the general shape. None of this will probably even be close to what it looks like in the final product. We're just kind of laying it out to a kind of a early bird map. And adding these little bends and kind of tilting the plane that it's on really helps add in some extra drama, some extra story. Hey guys, I'm recording a video. Can you keep it down? Thank you, kids. So we're just going to set ourselves up some of these little guiding lines to help kind of shift and turn everything. We're just going to go ahead and fill in some color. And since we've established here that this is going to be our closest plane, something that's like that, we're going to go ahead and darken this whole section up. And again, this is going to be a big hot mess for a little bit. So don't worry about that, because we're just, in worst case scenario, we can just scrap the whole thing and start all over again, right? And we just might. Let's toss in like a tree right here. And again, we're just throwing on shapes. And I have my pen still set to multiply mode because I just wanted to be able to darken in and fill in shapes really fast without having to constantly nab extra colors and stuff like that. And let's pull in maybe like another tree here. And don't make the mistake of making all your trees the same. Forests rarely have like all trees of exactly the same type. unless they've been planted that way. And they're also not likely going to be all following the same direction. So even if they are, like say they're all oak trees, some are going to turn, some are going to bend, some are going to grow a little bit sideways. And so take advantage of that variation to add some extra interesting qualities to your paintings. Do that here. And I think what we'll do is we'll take advantage of one of these bits of reference art. See, it's kind of like on a hill. We've got like these little rocks and stumps. I think that's going to be a pretty cool way of adding in some extra dimension and interest into our picture. So we'll create like a little hill that kind of comes to like a widening path right here, where our tracker meets whatever it is that they find. Still don't know what they're going to find. And if you are doing this for a client, you probably should have found out what they're tracking on this very real, very legit scenario. Okay, so we got a little bit of a hill, and maybe we'll make it kind of like a little bit of a valley. So like maybe he came down from this side. And I think we'll take like a little bit of a tree right here. We'll have it kind of splinter off. And I don't really want to stress too hard about like every little shape or whatever to the tree, because I'm likely going to paint over a lot of this anyway. Right now it's more exploration. And you could do a lot of this exploration on your own by doing some thumbnails in advance, which is totally recommendable. But for the sake of this video, I'm not going to do that. So we've got this crest right here. And so this is our midground. And so the midground ought to be exactly like what it sounds like. Mid in tone. Oops. And so we're going to treat this plane. The midground. Going to have this nice fun mid section. Maybe we'll have like it to be somewhat of a clearing going into some more woods. Or perhaps even that this isn't like a path. Maybe it's like a giant's footprint. And so we'll just have like these feet print. And that'll help kind of force the three-dimensional and distance aspects. And then it gives us a little bit of story to work with, because like then we can have like some down trees out here. And of course we want them to be a little bit brighter in value. But we're just kind of making up this. I mean, it's a very legitimate story, very real. It definitely happened. Okay, so we've got this tree here. I'm already tempted to start like valuing out these trees so that they look more real, but I need to resist that urge. This is a great time in your art here to establish your lighting. I think I want to go with the sun kind of at like a 5 o'clock coming off the side there, maybe 5, 6 o'clock in the day. And again, we're going back to that reference. I want to do some of these like roots in here, and so this will be like a big footprint. So we're going to want to look up some reference on like the way like big craters in the ground like that, how they work. But for the meantime, I think we can get by kind of treating it like just like a sudden break in the ground. And then the background, we probably really want to go into it, like I said, like another forest, maybe some mountains in the background. Things absorb the atmosphere color as they go further into the background. So like that's why mountains oftentimes look really blue or purpley, depending upon, you know, how far away they are. And so we're going to take that same idea. We'll put some mountains back here. Who knows, they may not even stay. And so this will be our tree line as it goes in. And remember, since it's kind of going downhill in this case, we're looking on top of these trees. So we should be seeing quite a bit of treetop, not as much tree trunk. But don't forget to add some in there, if nothing else, just to kind of hold the place before you go and, through using reference, getting them a little bit more accurate. And don't be afraid of putting in a whole lot of extra trees in there, because no one's going to expect you to detail out all of these trees. You just want to make sure that they look right from a distance. So again, using your reference, you want to make sure that you get all of the qualities of the trees kind of grouped together. So yeah, definitely harping on that reference big time. So we're going to add some highlights here. And if we, like, you know, here we get in front of like some of these other areas we've already marked up at this point, it doesn't really matter. It's not going to hurt anything because we're just kind of getting these ideas down and trying to get the best ideas out and the worst ideas out. That way we can pull out the worst ideas and go from there. And I think this going off to the right is actually towards that worst idea category, because we already have a tree here. So either we would want to remove that tree and open this area up, or we can take advantage of this area over here. But we already have our main character. So I think this tree is actually kind of a problem. So we're going to take this and we're going to mountain out that section. Yeah. So this tree is a little bit of a problem visually for us. Isn't helping our goal. One of the things I might recommend to do is look for some more reference that shows what like deforestation looks like, or look for broken trees and how they look, and that will help you get that look that you'll want of the appearance that a giant had gone through here. I mean, you could even, if you want to make this ranger look kind of like a bozo, you could even like put like the actual giant back here, so he's like pushing away the trees, and there's trees behind him or whatever, and the elf is like trying to track him, and he's back over here, just kind of like, huh? So that's the early bird stages of backgrounds. Establish your planes, figure your story out, figure your lighting out. And speaking of the lighting, so now we really want to, like, since we are doing that kind of lighting, we kind of want to create some kind of mood, some kind of drama with the lighting. Nothing too crazy, but enough that sells what we're trying to do. I think that footstep's probably way too big. We want them to get progressively smaller, but could definitely use a little bit more progression in these parts. And again, on a more complete version, I would probably say that it would be a good idea to like work these down a little bit more and to size them up. But for the context of this video, I think I'm okay with them being kind of like the wrong shape and size. If this were more like a rendered part, I'd probably work a little bit harder to get the proportions a little bit tighter and cleaner. You know, you could even add like an extra layer to the ground here to make it look more like it's transitioning down the hill. And if you kept like that footprint like right about there, and then maybe like another like footprint like right there. Then you could really start to here we go. You really start to build up some layers if you wanted to and make it descend a lot more. Because the fewer layers you have, the more of a drop off this is going to look like. And that footprint is actually kind of not even in step for like where you would be walking. Maybe we'll add like another tree right here. And this tree might be like someplace where like the giant step next to. You could have like some like snapped off branches. Like we'll have like another one like right here maybe. And you'll do yourself a lot of favor by creating like trees of varying size and width, but trying to make sure that they tell the story of the depth to each other. That way you know a little bit easier like how three-dimensional or how much perspective there is between where you're at and where you're not at. So these trees right here, these are just like just for distance. Like I probably won't even keep them in the final painting, but they're just kind of helping me like plot the distance, which is fine. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and do this here. Now you notice that I haven't really like put much in the way of like actual foliage to the tree. And I've talked about this before many times, especially on live stream. I really dislike the use of foliage brushes, so I discourage the use of them greatly. However, in this particular case, I'm going to use this one just to fill in some of the shape, and for no other reason. Like these brush strokes would never in a million years make it to the actual product. These are simply just to kind of hold in. Oh, that's his arrows. Hold in the place for foliage and shrubs and whatnot. So before you come at me, just know that again, the whole purpose of this exercise, this practice today, is to just get you to set up a background. So this will kind of like thicken it up a little bit and start to make it feel a little bit more grassy. I'm going to go back to my nice chalk brush. And from here, I'll take, I'm back on normal. I'll take like a lighter gray. And what I want to do is I kind of want to like start picking out some of the areas that I want to focus on with lighting. That way I can kind of get that drama that I was talking about earlier, like set up and ready to go. I don't want to add too crazy amount of it. I really wanted to just be like super focused on the exact area and the exact qualities that I want. And so this will like help me light him a little bit more. A little more accurately. And place him better into the world that he's in. Because if I pull him out right now, like you're gonna see like the piece where he was at. And I probably would do myself favors of like rendering that in case I do want to move him or change any particular aspects. But nonetheless, like the truth is still the truth in this case. You know, our horizon line is still right about here. We're looking down on everything below this. We're looking straight along the line of everything here. And we're going to look up at everything up here. And that's super true. So as giant is giant back here. These tops of the trees, as they come down into this valley, we're going to be looking down at them. And as they recede to the background, we're going to look at them or up at them if they went higher. Which they won't because here's the horizon. And they're not going up above that. And so we've established our little hill here. And this is how you set up a background. And then everything from here would be pretty much just like starting to flesh it in and render it, give it color, give it more life, and get the details involved. But you know, we're nowhere near anything like that. And so all of this was just kind of, I'm doing this on the fly. There is no client. Can you believe that? All of this was just kind of made up here on the spot. And, you know, I just kind of, you could start throwing in some grasses and things like that. And again, even to this point here where I'm throwing in some of these like little details and things like that, this is still all sketch. We're still sketching with paint. That's all we're doing. We're just trying to understand the world that we're in. Let's grab some of these different tones and colors, excuse me, values. Whoops. And there we go. So we've got some grass set up here. And we'll do ourselves some favors here like on this ledge by like grassing it up a pretty good amount and showing that there is a ledge. And yeah. This area over here, maybe it's catching just a little bit of that light from this area. So we'll keep this shadow like so. And yeah. And so I would probably keep working some of these trees and like different little shapes and whatnot as I went along. And just remembering that like not all trees are mature. Like some trees are little punk kids. Some trees are just, you know, they're still young and they don't all look the same. Oops. And so that's the basics right there. You know, the little story pieces that we put in here for our own fun, like this isn't really super part of it, but you know, the principles would be all the same. You set up your lighting, you set up your perspective. And there you go. And then, you know, you can paint these trees out however it is that you felt like was the best way to do it. You may want to add in some extra little like you might want to put like a river here. You could do that. And with rivers, like I would tell you that like it would, if you didn't do like a little river stream or something like that, start dark, start as dark as you really can. And build up from there, because most of the time water is not super, it's like more reflective on top than it is at the bottom. It just loses light as it goes down, so you want to build your way up with that. But you could put in like a little river here and go from there. And again, these little footprint things that I'm making would never make the final thing. But yeah, and then let's take some of this sky white. Well, maybe just for, again, setting ourselves a roadmap. You would really want to use reference on this. That way it'll look right. But just so that way we have, you know, the basics popped in there. There we go. And that's how you set up a basic scene, you know, and then from here you could put on like an overlay and oops. Put in some like saturated greens. Put on some less saturated greens for like this middle ground, and then move more towards this color for the background, and you can start to build up your colors from there. There's like sky tones, and you know, just start chugging away at it, you know, make it work, and go sloppy at first. Make sure you also don't use the same color brown for every tree. I'm just doing this for the sake of the video. But there you go. You know, you're starting to build up your image. Or water. And we can throw in a little bit of blue onto it. And then, you know, have a ball from there. Maybe we'll go for these here. These like lighted areas. We'll go like that, and then go to Color Town. So anyway, this is just an intro 101 on how to build up a background from nothing. This is just an intro 101 how to build up a background. And yeah, hopefully it worked out for you. And if you find something interesting about it, let me know in the comments below. Also, feel free to subscribe, click the like button, and suggest any other ideas if you have any. And maybe we'll follow up with this with a more advanced video, getting into more like rendering and things like that. This is simply just for the concept portion of it, to kind of start with a bit of a sketch. And then that way you can build it up from here and make it your own. Again, use reference. So hopefully you found this enjoyable, and let me know if you did or you didn't. Let me know what we can do better. Let me know what you like. And we'll see you on the next one. And as always, my friends, may you all walk with a light heart and a song in your step. And I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.